Hello again, and welcome to this night recording in the series I'm working through on Windows 10 in the enterprise. So, in the very previous Hangout, I showed how to the basics of how to configure UAV in an enterprise. We demonstrated how you prepare your enterprise by creating the folders that you're going to be storing the settings and you're going to be storing the template in. We demonstrated how to configure that in an enterprise using the group policy. Then we proceeded to install the UAV client, and then we proceeded to demonstrate what UAV can provide and using Notepad. So we made a change to Notepad settings on Learn Client 2, which if I bring up a diagram here, on Learn Client 2, and then we went over to Learn Client 1 and did a few things. So it did take a while to come down, but we did a few things, and then we saw the settings that we've made within an application basically show up um, on the other client that we're logged into. And that's something that's similar, across cloud. People are used to that in these days of cloud technologies. I use Evernote all the time. So, I'm typing and making changes on my computer, and then as I'm on the train, I'm typing and making changes on my phone or my mobile device. So it's something that, it doesn't matter which device or platform I'm using, the experience I get is consistent. Whatever change I make in settings here, I see on the other side. Same thing with um, Google Chrome. I set a bookmark at home, I go to work, and I can see the bookmark there. So it's all like interrelated into like what's currently popular in IT at the moment. So we'll take UAV a step further now. So we demonstrated using Notepad previously. So let's take that into WordPad now. So what I'll do is on Learn Client 1, I'll just close out of this one. Let's bring a PowerShell. And I'll just do a quick get UAV configuration there. So we did this earlier, and we saw where settings were stored, where templates were stored. And then I want to show you what the synchronization method is. So see where the settings is stored, where the template is stored, and then the sync method, which is sync provider. Now let's actually just bring up Google to talk about that. So if I go UEV sync provider, just to mention that just a little bit. So let's bring up Google here. I can see sync methods for UEV 2.x. By the way, I think the latest version is 2.1. Yep. We can see sync method sync provider. So settings changes for a specific application of a global Windows desktop settings are saved locally to a cache folder. These changes are then synchronized with the setting storage location when a synchronization trigger event takes place, which by default is every 30 minutes. Pushing out changes will save the local changes to the setting storage path. So the default setting is the gold standard for this default setting is the gold standard for computers. This option attempts to synchronize the setting and times out after a short delay to ensure that the application and operating system setup is delayed. Offline and then none. This configuration setting is designed for the VDI and streamed application experience primarily. This setting should be used on Windows Server boxes used in a data center where the connection will always be available. Any settings changes are saved directly to the server if the network connection to the setting storage part is not available. In other words, the one that we're currently using will save whatever settings changes we make. It will save it temporarily in a local cache, and then whenever a sync event is triggered, which is by default every 30 minutes, it moves the settings changes over to the server. But none means it's always online. In other words, as you're making the changes, it's synchronizing it directly to the server. It's not saving it in a local cache, and you can see here where it says by default, computers synchronize their settings every 20 minutes after logging in. And there are other options also. So, but you can see that this is not deprecated, and the other one external. So this is a new one in UEV 2.1. This configuration method specifies that if UEV settings are written to a local folder on the user computer, then any external sync engine, such as OneDrive for Business, Work Folder, SharePoint, can be used to apply these settings to different computers that the user access. And this is totally separate discussion for another time. Just be aware that there are three main settings that we can use in terms of sync method. Sync provider, which saves to a local cache first. External, which does some really intelligent stuff around other Microsoft cloud technologies and even other third-party cloud technologies. And then none, which basically doesn't save to a local cache, saves directly whatever setting changes you're making, saves them to the server. So on non-client one, we're currently using sync provider. And on Learn Client 2, if I bring a PowerShell on this one, and I get UEV configuration, love PowerShell. By the way, if you're not following our community, look for our community called MCS's 2012 study group on Google+. We'll have some really cool PowerShell hangouts that'll be coming up very soon. Get UEV configuration, come on. It's just taking its time to respond. I'll probably abandon it, yeah. Let's go on. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll set this one, change it. So I'll go set UEV configuration, and I'll change the sync method from sync provider to none. Okay, so, and also here you can see sync timeout in milliseconds. In other words, if it tries to sync, it times out within this milliseconds. So let's set that. And I'll sign out of this computer. That's from Learn Client 1. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go back to Learn Client 2. And if I do get UV configuration, Learn Client 2 seems to be a bit slow today. So that's really, yeah, okay. So sync method you can see set to none, which means any changes that we're making is saving it directly to the server. So in this case, let's bring up WordPad. Doesn't like that. Let's go WordPad. So this is me just opening up WordPad for the very first time on this computer. So if I click the view button here, and you can see the ruler and the status bar, they are both checked. So they're both selected by default. So what I'll do is I'll clear both of these. Again, remember, as we're making this change, what is it doing? Because we have a sync method of none, it's saving it directly to the server. The changes I'm making within this application. So I've made that change, I close out of the application, I go back to the domain controller, I look in the settings folder, now I can see WordPad here. The changes in settings that I've made have been saved here. So now if I go back to Learn Client 2 again, I've already made the changes, closed WordPad. So we've seen a bit of what UEV does. So now we're going to see a bit more of what UEV does and what UEV doesn't do. So I've made some changes in WordPad, right? And I've closed WordPad. So the other thing I'll do is make changes, just different changes to my computer. So I'll just create a new shortcut on the desktop. and I'll create a new shortcut for the C drive. And yep, I've got down the desktop. So the other thing I'll do is I'll go under my document and I'll create a new text document. On the document here, I go new text document and I'll call this David O. And I'll just say hello and save that. Okay, so now I've got 3 changes made. I've made changes within the WordPad application where I cleared the text boxes that were selected by default for status and for the ruler. And then I created a shortcut on the desktop of this machine, and then I created a new text file in document folder. So what I'll do then is I'll go over back to non-client 1 and I'll log in as Brad. Okay. So logging in as Brad now. And now I'm logged in as Brad. Okay. So actually if I go WordPad, let's bring that up. And then view. Now this is something that's selected by default, but you can see that the changes are made in one application are synchronized over to this computer, and that's cleared. So that's nice. But then you see the other 2 changes I've made, which is a shortcut on the desktop. I can't see any of that there. Okay, what other changes did I make? I created a folder in my document. Let's see if that's here now. And let's go on the document. And no, I don't have that folder. Sorry, I don't have that new text document that I created in my document. I don't have it here. So that's just to show you what UEV does and what it doesn't do. What UEV does is synchronize application and operating system settings. So it doesn't synchronize the profile. If you need to synchronize your profile, we've done a demonstration on that. You have to use roaming profile. And if you need to synchronize your documents, you have to use either folder redirection or use a cloud technology like OneDrive for Business or Dropbox or something like that. So that's just to show you that because I know there's been a few misconceptions that, oh, UAV is a replacement for roaming profiles. No, it's not. It provides extra functionality on top of all these other technologies. So roaming profiles to roam the profiles around, redirected folders to roam the document around, UEV to roam the application and OS settings around. So, yep, I believe you got that now. So let's move on now. So what we'll do in this case now is I'll just sign out of Learn Client 1. And we want to do the last bit of this demonstration, which is now those are default applications within Windows. Those are WordPad and Notepad. What happens if there's like an application that I've installed on my client machine that I want to be able to sync the settings or the changes that are made within this application across devices? How do I do that? So that's what we'll be talking about now. That's what we'll be demonstrating now. So I'll log in as administrator now because I will need to do some installation. If you remember the tools.setup that we saw earlier. So I have to log in as editor, log in as password. Okay. So this is on Learn Client 1. Yep. And I'll go on the C drive. Lab files, number 3, and CPU. And I'll double click to setup.exe. So this is the tool that we use to accomplish what I described that we want to accomplish. which is being able to synchronize settings for an application that's not synchronized by default. Okay, so this tool is called the Microsoft User Experience Virtualization Generator Setup Wizard. So it does something kind of similar to if you've used our AppV before or some other tools. If you're familiar with application packaging that captures settings, so it's kind of like that. It uses kind of like the same concept. So while it is installing, I'll pause the recording and then come back once it's done. Okay, the installation is completed. I'll click finish here. Yep, and then let's open up the application. It's right here, Microsoft User Experience Virtualization Generator. So I opened that up, logged in as an admin. So preferably, it's better to do this on a computer that's clean. So what do we want to do? We want to create a, excuse me, I want to create a settings location template. Okay, let's click on that. And it says specify the file part of the application and then click next. So let's go. So the application that I'll be using for this demonstration is C program files, remote desktop connection manager, Microsoft remote desktop connection manager, and that's how they say man.exe. So I'll open that from within the generator. Yeah, and it says when you click next, the discover location windows open and the application opens. UEV monitors the application while it opens to capture the settings locations of the application. Clear this checkbox to create an empty template that you can edit. In other words, what it's saying is you're opening this application. You're using this to generate a settings template. So I'm going to open the application, and in the background, I'm going to be monitoring where does this application store its settings. Because I want to do is I want to capture those locations and store them in a template so that whenever you make changes, I can synchronize any changes in this particular location, synchronize them also to the server, and then again, you can have consistent experience across. So that's what it's going to be doing. So I click next here. It will say, hold on, I'll open the application and I'm going to begin to monitor it. So I may have to pause the recording again because this will take a while, but actually I would really love you to see when the application itself, when it opens up the application that we want to capture. Yeah, there we go. So it's opened up this application by itself. And what I'll do is I'll go on the tools there. I'll go under options. So I'll go on the tree here and I'll click to select focus to remote client. I'll just making a change to the application settings. So in the background, this generator is monitoring what's going on in the background. Okay, so I click OK to that and then I close the application. And then it's gonna go, I got it. You've made a change. I know exactly where this application stores its settings now. Therefore, I'll monitor this. So it's going to save all those locations in the template that it's going to capture. That's what's going on. So let's give that a few minutes to complete. So I'll probably pause the recording and then come back when we're ready to proceed. Okay, it's completed what it's doing in the background. So I can see this notification that location discovery is complete. Click next to continue. Okay, click next, and you see registry is like, well, this application is not storing any changes in the registry. That's why it is empty. Okay, let's go on the files. On the standard, said, well, there's nothing here on the standard, but on the non-standard, it's like, there we go. This is where this application is storing its settings, right here. and it says now I know the location where this application is storing its settings. Okay, so I'll go next. And then if I click create now, it's actually going to create the template that will be used for this application. So I'll just go ahead and click create. Again, this will probably take a while. It's going to create a XML file. What I want in this case is we want to save the XML file into our central location because that's where all our clients will get it from. So if I go to learn dc1 backslash uev templates, yep, I'll dc man.xml and I'll click save. Okay, and then if I go back here, go out on the uev templates, I have the how dc man there, and then I can basically go close. So what will now happen is that now I can also start, this application can also start participating in the whole user experience virtualization. So this application, the settings can also be synchronized along with other applications, and we're just going to verify that. So on learn client one, I'll just bring a PowerShell. So let's see, get UEV templates, and I'll just use a wildcard to do a search. How they see, and it'll probably come up with nothing and say, hey, I've got nothing for you. Yeah, and it's got nothing. Okay, so what we're about to do now is we just manually register the templates that's on the server location. So this is a process that we don't have to manually do. It's something that registers by default. Again, this is configurable, but by default it registers once per day. So by default, once every day, the client will go to the template location on the server and say, hey, give me whatever template you have, I'm going to register them. So, but we don't want to wait for that once in a day to happen, so we can just register it manually. So go register UEV templates learn dc1 backslash UEV templates backslash rdc.xml. Okay, and enter. So now we've registered that. Now if I do the get UEV template again for how DC, now I can see it registered a template, this template that we just captured. Okay, so what I can now do is I can go to learn client 2. I'm signed in as administrator already. Okay, so I can go to C drive, program files, Microsoft User Experience Virtualization, go under agent, under x64, and then apply settings template catalog. So again, which is what happens once every day. But again, I'll just double click this and I actually just bring a PowerShell. Get UEV template RDC. Okay. That's why. So I need to sign out of this machine first and sign in as an administrator. Actually, let's just run as administrator. Administrator. So because I'm still signed in as Brad. And actually I can sign out of this one. So that's the PowerShell method that we did earlier, the register UV template, and that's the manual method. So that's the agent that runs once every day to register the template. And now it's registered. Okay. So we're currently signed in as Brad. What I'll do is we have the Microsoft Remote Connection Manager on this machine. We do. So I'll bring out the same man up. Yep. And this man. She's not. Yep, there we go. It's just taking a while. Again, the application, sorry, the machine is just a bit slow today. Okay, so I'll go under tools and I'll go under options. So first of all, let's go look at under Brad here. Brad settings packages. Yeah, you can see all the folders that we have. I'll log in as Brad here also. Brad. Okay, then back to learn client 2. So autosave interval, I'll just select this and I'll change this to autosave every 3 minutes. So that's under options, general autosave every 3 minutes, and then I'll click OK to that. And then I'll just close the application. Yeah. So that's set to none, which means it's saving directly to the server. So we go back here, and here we go. Now we have a folder here, and it's captured all the settings, all the changes and settings that I've made. It's captured it here, and I can go back here and go all apps and look for the Microsoft Remote. Where is the application? Remote Desktop Connection Manager. Do I have to log in as an admin to open the? I hope not. So I may have to. I think I'm using none for synchronization method. So none means it's getting it directly. It's not using any local cache. Yep, set to none. So now if I go under tools and go to options, and here we go. We have the settings that we configured all here for us. So I hope you now understand the benefit that UAV can bring to your enterprise if you decide to go down this direction. Some applications may some organizations may decide not to go down this direction, but rather go down the path of using cloud applications. And also we do have like a lot of other stuff that we will be doing. So just stay with us in this whole series. There's a lot of very good stuff. We're still going to talk about Microsoft Intune. We're still going to talk about OneDrive for Business. We're still going to talk about Office 365. We're still going to talk about Azure Remote Apps. There's a lot of very good stuff, new stuff that are coming in this demonstration. So just stick with us through the demonstrations, and you really enjoy it. You have fun, and it'll be really useful for you. So thanks very much for watching this demonstration. I hope that was very useful for you. I'll see you in the very next one.